The whisper, the observation deck of listening post Gamma 7 hummed with the soft pulse of monitoring equipment. Captain Mira Voss stood before the viewport, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, her reflection ghost-like against the infinite blackness beyond. 3 years she'd commanded this station at the edge of everything, and 3 years she'd heard nothing but cosmic silence. Until tonight. Signal strength increasing on Channel 77 Alpha, called Jaren Thrace from the communication console. His voice carried that professional distance he'd maintained for the past 6 months, ever since their relationship had crumbled under the weight of duty and pride. Same pattern as before. It's getting stronger. Mira crossed the deck, her boots silent on the metal floor. She leaned over his shoulder, close enough to catch the familiar scent of his uniform, close enough to remember. Run it through the historical database again. 3rd time. Already done. Jaren's jaw tightened. Mira, it's a match. 97% certainty. She met his eyes, seeing her own disbelief reflected there. The Exodus. Impossible, he whispered. That carrier vanished 300 years ago. Everyone aboard was presumed dead. Presumed, Mira repeated, her heart hammering, but never confirmed. The doors to the observation deck hissed open, and Ambassador Krell swept in with the practiced arrogance of the Navari Empire. His scaled skin caught the blue light of the monitors, and his 4 crystalline eyes regarded them with undisguised contempt. Behind him, 2 guards flanked the entrance, their weapons obvious statements of power. Captain Voss. Krell's voice resonated with harmonics that made human speech sound crude by comparison. I understand you've requested my presence for some urgent matter. I hope this isn't another of your desperate attempts to manufacture relevance for your dying species. Mira straightened, stepping away from Jaren. Ambassador, we've detected signals matching those of the legendary human carrier Exodus. The ship that... Legends. Krell waved a clawed hand dismissively. Human myths to comfort yourselves about your insignificance. Your kind had one moment of military competence centuries ago, and you've clung to those stories ever since. Meanwhile, real empires have built civilizations. With respect, Ambassador. Jaren stood, his voice tight with controlled anger. The signal patterns are irrefutable. Something is out there, and it's using human encryption codes that haven't been active for 3 centuries. Krell moved to the viewport, his robes trailing behind him. Even if this ghost ship exists, what threat could it pose? 1 vessel against the combined might of 23 empires? He turned back to them, his expression one of pity. Humanity's time is over, Captain. You are curators of your own museum, nothing more. Mira felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the constant reminder that humans were tolerated, not respected. But beneath that burn, something else stirred. The signal pulsed again on the monitors, stronger now, closer. Permission to speak freely, Ambassador? She asked. Krell gestured lazily. If you must. 300 years ago, humanity didn't disappear because we were weak. We disappeared because we chose to, and if the Exodus has returned, maybe we're tired of being forgotten. For the first time, something flickered in Krell's eyes. Not fear exactly, but the shadow of an ancient memory, a warning passed down through generations of the Navari Empire. Stories of how humans fought, not with honor or tradition, but with terrifying creativity. Monitor your signals, Captain, Krell said finally, his voice quieter. But do not mistake echoes for threats. The galaxy has moved on. He swept from the deck, his guards following. When the doors closed, Jaren let out a breath. That went well. He's scared, Mira said softly. Did you see it? For just a moment he was scared. Jaren moved beside her at the viewport. This close, the careful distance between them felt like a physical barrier. Mira, if the Exodus is really out there, if it's really been hiding all this time, then everything changes, she finished. The galaxy thought humanity was finished. But what if we were just waiting? Their eyes met, and for a moment, the 6 months of silence dissolved. Jaren's hand moved toward hers, hesitated, then completed the journey. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and familiar. I've missed you, he said quietly. Not just this, everything. I know, Mira whispered. Me too. The monitoring equipment shrieked a warning. Both of them spun to the console as new data flooded across the screens. The signal had multiplied, expanded into a full broadcast spectrum, and within it, clear as starlight, came words in ancient human standard. This is the carrier Exodus. We are humanity's echo. We are returning. Prepare yourselves. Mira and Jaren stared at the message, then at each other. The void had been silent for so long. Now it whispered, and that whisper carried the weight of 300 years of patience, preparation, and promise. Outside the viewport, distant stars flickered. Something massive moved through the darkness, blocking their light. Something vast enough to cast shadows across the galaxy itself. The forgotten silence had ended, and nothing would ever be the same. The shadow rises. The emergency council convened within hours. Mira stood before the holographic displays in the station's command center, surrounded by representatives from a dozen empires. Admiral Nexian of the Korthar fleet dominated the center screen, his chitinous armor gleaming under harsh lights, his mandibles clicking with agitation. A Korthar patrol fleet has been destroyed, Nexian announced, his voice like grinding metal. 7 ships, gone in minutes. The wreckage shows weapon signatures we cannot identify, but the trajectory originated from coordinates matching your phantom carrier. Admiral, humanity had nothing to do with, Mira began. Silence. Nexian's roar shook the speakers. For 3 centuries, humans have been weak, scattered, irrelevant. Now this ancient warship appears, and my fleet burns. This is an act of war. Jaren stepped beside Mira, his presence steadying. We're trying to establish communication with the Exodus. They're not responding to our hails. Whatever's happening, the humans on that station might not even recognize current authority. Convenient, sneered Nexian. Perhaps they recognize exactly what they're doing. Perhaps this was your plan all along, to lull us into complacency before striking. The transmission cut out, leaving the command center in tense silence. Mira's fists clenched. Around them, junior officers worked frantically at their stations, and in the corner, Dr. Sienna Marks hunched over a terminal, her fingers flying across holographic keys. Doctor? Mira called. Anything? Sienna looked up, her youthful face pale with exhaustion.
Captain, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the attack.
This isn't just old human technology. It's evolved, merged with something else. The power output alone suggests fusion drives we abandoned centuries ago, but enhanced far beyond our theoretical limits. How is that possible? Jaren asked. 300 years of isolation and development, Sienna said quietly. Think about it. They had one of humanity's greatest carriers, packed with our best minds, our best technology. And they had time. Centuries of it, hidden in the void, building, improving, watching us forget them. Mira moved to the viewport overlooking the station's docking bay. Below, ships came and went, merchants and travelers fleeing the border regions in panic. They're not just survivors. They're something new. Jaren joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Mira, whatever happens with the Exodus, we need to talk. About us. Now? She glanced at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. Especially now. His voice softened. If the galaxy's about to tear itself apart, I don't want to face it with this distance between us. I was an idiot. I let pride and duty push you away when all I wanted was to hold you closer. Her breath caught. Jaren, I love you, he said simply. I never stopped. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Sienna's voice cut through the chaos. Captain! The Exodus just transmitted new coordinates. They're inviting us to send an envoy. Mira's heart raced. Who? They specifically requested you and Commander Thrace. The docking bay transformed into controlled chaos as preparations began. A small diplomatic shuttle was prepped, weapon systems carefully disabled to show peaceful intent. Mira changed into her formal uniform, her hands trembling slightly as she fastened the collar, a knock at her quarters. Jaren entered, also in dress uniform, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. We might not come back, he said. I know. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. The kiss was desperate, hungry, filled with 6 months of longing and fear and hope. Mira melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, feeling his heartbeat against her chest. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. When we get back, she started. When we get back, he interrupted. We stopped wasting time. The shuttle journey took 4 hours. They traveled in silence, holding hands in the cramped cockpit, watching the void stretch endlessly before them. And then they saw it. The Exodus filled their viewport like a mountain floating in space. It dwarfed anything Mira had ever seen, its hull a patchwork of ancient human design and strange new architecture. Lights pulsed across its surface like veins carrying blood. and weapons ports gaped like the mouths of sleeping beasts. "My God," Jaren whispered. The shuttle was caught in a tractor beam, guided gently into a cavernous hangar bay. As they landed, Mira saw hundreds of ships nestled in organized rows, fighters and bombers that looked both familiar and alien. And there, waiting at the base of their landing ramp, stood a single figure. Commander Helena Cross wore a uniform Mira recognized from history texts, but modified, sleeker. Her auburn hair was cut short, military precise, and her eyes held the weight of someone who'd lived their entire life preparing for this moment. Captain Voss, Commander Thrace. Helena's smile was enigmatic. "Welcome to humanity's future. We have much to discuss." As they descended the ramp, Mira felt the weight of history pressing down. This woman, this ship, these people, they were humanity's hidden legacy. And now that legacy had awakened, and the galaxy would have to answer for 3 centuries of dismissal and contempt. Helena gestured toward the hangar exit. "Come. There are those who wish to meet the humans who stayed behind. They're quite curious about what our species became without them." Walking beside Helena, with Jaren close behind, Mira felt the future shifting beneath her feet. The galaxy had thought humanity finished. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. Alliance of Fear, the interior of the Exodus, defied Mira's expectations. She'd imagined decay, the weight of centuries pressing down on ancient corridors. Instead, she walked through halls that hummed with life. Children's laughter echoed from distant chambers. Adults moved with purpose, their faces marked by determination rather than desperation. Helena led them through winding passages, her stride confident. "Your people forgot us," she said without bitterness. "But we never forgot you. We monitored your signals, learned your languages, watched empires rise and dismiss humanity as irrelevant. It hurt knowing our sacrifice meant nothing to those who remained." "Sacrifice?" Jaren asked. "The Exodus didn't disappear by accident." Helena stopped before a massive window overlooking the carrier's interior. Below, an entire city existed within the ship's belly, buildings stacked in impossible geometries, farms growing under artificial suns. "We left because humanity was losing. The empires united against us, seeing our creativity as a threat. So our ancestors made a choice. Vanish completely, let the galaxy believe us destroyed, and build something stronger in the darkness." Mira stared at the city, her mind reeling. 300 years of hiding? 300 years of becoming, Helena corrected. She turned to face them, and Mira was struck by the intensity in her gaze. "Your humanity survived by accepting a place at the bottom. Ours survived by refusing to accept any place at all." Before Mira could respond, her communicator chimed. Sienna's voice crackled through. "Captain, you need to see this. The Korthar aren't waiting for diplomacy. They're mobilizing everything." The view shifted to tactical displays. Dozens of Empire fleets were converging, forming the largest armada in recorded history. At their head, Admiral Nexian's flagship blazed with weapons hot. "They're coming for us," Helena said calmly. "We knew they would. Fear makes empires predictable. You destroyed their patrol," Jaren said. "They think it's war. It was self-defense. They fired first when we refused to identify ourselves according to their protocols." Helena's expression hardened. "But you're right. They've made their choice. Now humanity must make ours." The next hours blurred together. Mira found herself in communication with Counselor Thane of the Meridian Coalition, one of the few alien leaders advocating for restraint. His species, the Viridians, were philosophers and strategists. Their green-tinged skin and thoughtful manner a stark contrast to Nexian's aggression. "Captain Voss," Thane's hologram materialized before her. "I convinced my people to join this armada by promising we'd negotiate first. But the Korthar want blood. They're pushing for immediate attack." "Then stop them," Mira pleaded. "This doesn't have to become a war. Can you guarantee the Exodus will stand down?" Mira looked at Helena, who stood nearby listening. The commander shook her head slightly. "No," Mira admitted, "but I can guarantee they'll defend themselves. And Counselor, I've seen their capabilities. This armada won't be enough." Thane's expression grew grim. "Then perhaps we're all doomed to repeat history's mistakes." After the transmission ended, Mira found herself alone with Helena in an observation lounge. The commander poured 2 glasses of something amber from a bottle marked with dates from before the Exodus's disappearance. "Whiskey," Helena explained. "We've been saving it. Seemed appropriate for the end of hiding." They drank in silence. watching stars slide past the viewport. Mira found herself studying Helena's profile, the strong line of her jaw, the way her eyes reflected distant starlight. There was something magnetic about her, this woman from another time, another humanity. "You're staring," Helena said with a slight smile. "Sorry, it's just, you're what we could have been. What we gave up to survive." Helena turned to face her fully. "And you're what we feared becoming, diminished, forgotten." She stepped closer. "But I see strength in you too, Mira Voss. You stayed when your species was weak, carried dignity when the galaxy offered none. That's a different kind of courage." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Mira couldn't name. Then her communicator buzzed again, shattering the tension. Jaren's voice came through, urgent. "Mira, you need to return to the shuttle. The Armada is 12 hours out, and the Station Council wants us back for emergency protocols." Reality crashed back. "Understood." "On my way." Helena walked with her to the hangar. At the shuttle ramp, the commander caught Mira's arm gently. "Whatever happens in the coming battle, remember this. Humanity survives. Always. We're too stubborn to die." "I'll remember," Mira promised. Back on Gamma 7, Mira found Jaren coordinating defensive positions. The station wasn't a military installation, but they had enough weapons to protect themselves from pirates. Against an armada, they were meaningless. "We should evacuate," Jaren said when she entered the command center. "No, we stay. We bear witness." He studied her face. "You believe in them." "The Exodus. I believe in us," she corrected. "All of us. The humans who stayed and the humans who left. We're still one species, Jaren. And it's time the galaxy remembered what that means." Night cycle came, though on a space station, night was merely convention. Mira found Jaren in her quarters, standing at her viewport, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. "Kept thinking about everything we've wasted." "Time chances each other." He turned to face her. "I don't want to waste any more." Mira crossed to him, her heart thundering. "Neither do I." Their kiss was different this time, not desperate but certain, a promise rather than a plea. Jaren's hands found the small of her back, pulling her close, and Mira let herself melt into his warmth, into the familiar comfort of his embrace. They made love slowly, tenderly, reconnecting not just physically but emotionally, erasing 6 months of painful distance with touch and whispered confessions. Afterward, tangled in sheets, Mira traced patterns on Jaren's chest. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she began, "we face it together." He finished. "No more distance. No more pride. Just us." "Just us," she agreed. But as they drifted towards sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, Mira's thoughts turned to the coming storm. Somewhere in the void, an armada approached. And somewhere in that same darkness, the Exodus waited with the patience of 3 centuries. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's silence had never been surrender. It had been preparation. The reckoning. The Armada arrived like a metallic dawn. Thousands of ships bleeding out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. From Gamma 7's observation deck, Mira watched with Jaren beside her, their hands clasped tight. Every screen in the command center displayed tactical data, and none of it offered hope. "Fleet composition confirmed," Sienna reported, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Korthar battle cruisers, Viridian destroyers, Navari carriers. They brought everything." "Where's the Exodus?" Jaren asked. Still holding position at the void's edge, Sienna manipulated the holographic display. Not moving, not responding to hails. "It's like they're waiting." Ambassador Krell's face appeared on the main screen, his crystalline eyes hard. "Captain Voss, the Navari Empire urges you to evacuate Gamma 7 immediately. What follows will be unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Mira's voice was ice. "You're about to start a war based on fear and pride." "We're ending a threat before it begins," Krell corrected. "The Exodus has already demonstrated hostile capability. We cannot allow human arrogance to threaten galactic stability again." "Then you've learned nothing," Mira said quietly. 300 years, and you still see us as the problem rather than asking why we left in the first place." Krell's expression flickered with something unreadable. Before the transmission cut out, Admiral Nexian's voice boomed across all channels. "Attention human vessel Exodus. You are surrounded. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Silence stretched for 10 heartbeats. Then Helena Cross's voice, calm and clear, answered across the void. "Admiral Nexian." Counselor Thane, Ambassador Krell, representatives of the empires. Helena paused. 300 years ago, our ancestors left because you gave them no choice. You feared what you couldn't control, couldn't predict, couldn't dominate. Today, you prove nothing has changed. This armada isn't about security. It's about reminding humanity of its place. But we don't have a place anymore. We have a purpose. Surrender now, or be destroyed, Nexian snarled. No, Helena replied simply. But we'll give you one last chance to turn back. Because what comes next, you can't undo. Fire! Nexian roared. The void erupted in light. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously, a wall of plasma and missiles screaming toward the Exodus. Mira gripped Jaren's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. Watching destruction rush toward humanity's legacy, the Exodus didn't move. Its shields flared to life, a sphere of shimmering energy that absorbed the firestorm. Explosions blossomed across its surface like flowers, beautiful and terrible. And when the light faded, the carrier remained untouched, waiting. Impossible, Sienna whispered. Then the Exodus answered. White beams lanced from the carrier with surgical precision. Each shot found a target, cutting through armor that had withstood centuries of warfare. Korthar battlecruisers split like fruit. Navari carriers erupted in silent flowers of flame. The Exodus's weapons weren't brutal. They were efficient, terrifyingly so. From the carrier's bays, thousands of drones poured forth like angry insects. They moved in patterns that defied conventional tactics, weaving through the Armada's formations with impossible grace. Coalition fighters scrambled to intercept, but the drones danced around them, their counterattacks perfectly timed. They're not trying to kill everyone, Jaren observed, his tactical mind analyzing the battle. Look, they're disabling ships, crippling engines and weapons, but leaving life support intact. He was right. The Exodus fought with restraint, a demonstration rather than an execution. But even restrained, its power was overwhelming. Mira watched as Admiral Nexian's flagship took a direct hit to its command tower. The mighty vessel listed, trailing atmosphere and debris. Escape pods began launching and the drones didn't pursue them. They're letting them go, Mira breathed. They could kill everyone, but they're not. On the command center's screens, Counselor Thane's face appeared, broadcasting to all ships. All vessels, cease fire! Cease fire! This is madness. But the Korthar fleet, driven by pride and fury, pressed their attack. More ships died. The void filled with wreckage, with the shattered remains of arrogance. Helena's voice cut through the chaos. Captain Voss, Commander Thrace, I need you to listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you will change everything. A private channel opened. Helena's face appeared, and behind her, Mira could see other humans working with focused intensity. We didn't return for conquest, Helena said urgently. We returned because the galaxy needs to change. For 300 years, empires have fought each other in an endless cycle of revenge and dominance. Species like yours caught in the middle are crushed or forgotten. We came back to break that cycle. By destroying their fleets, Jaren challenged. By proving that violence isn't the only path to power, Helena countered. Look at your screens, Commander. Really look. Mira studied the tactical display and saw it. The Exodus was herding the surviving ships, using precisely targeted shots to drive them away from each other, breaking the Armada's cohesion without destroying more vessels than necessary. You're forcing them to retreat, Mira realized. We're forcing them to think, Helena corrected. Every empire here believed their combined might was unstoppable. In one engagement, we've shattered that certainty. Now they have to ask themselves, if one human ship can do this, what else are we capable of? And more importantly, what would we be capable of if we worked together instead of fighting? The battle raged for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, Empire fleets withdrew, their pride shattered, their certainty gone. Only the Viridian ships under Counselor Thane remained, holding position but not firing. Counselor, Helena addressed him directly. Your people value wisdom. Then be wise now. Tell the galaxy what you've witnessed. Thane's green-tinged face was grave. I will tell them that humanity's patience has a limit, and that we ignored their warnings at our peril. As the last hostile ships fled, the void grew quiet. Wreckage floated like monuments to failed arrogance, but thousands of lives had been spared, escape pods drifting, rescue beacons flashing. They'll be rescued, Helena promised. All of them. The Exodus is already dispatching recovery craft. We wanted them to fear our power, not our cruelty, Mira slumped into her command chair, exhausted. Jaren stood behind her, his hands on her shoulders, and she leaned back into his touch, drawing strength from his presence. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Helena said. "The real work begins. The galaxy has seen what we can do. Tomorrow they'll need to learn what we want. And Captain Voss, I hope you'll help bridge that gap. You understand both worlds, the humanity that stayed and the humanity that left. We need voices like yours." The transmission ended, leaving Mira and Jaren alone in the command center. Around them, officers worked quietly, processing the magnitude of what they'd witnessed. "She's right," Jaren said softly. "You're perfect for this. You always believed in humanity even when we were forgotten." "We all believed," Mira replied. "We just forgot how to show it." She stood and turned to face him, cupping his face in her hands. "Thank you for being here, for coming back to me." "Always," he promised, kissing her forehead. "Through every storm, every silence, every return." Outside the viewport, the Exodus began to move, gliding through the wreckage like a guardian angel. Its lights pulsed steadily, a heartbeat in the darkness. The reckoning was over. But humanity's true test was just beginning. A new dawn 3 weeks after the battle, Gamma 7 had transformed from a forgotten listening post into the galaxy's most important location. Ships arrived daily, merchant vessels, diplomatic cruisers, even a few military scouts keeping respectful distances. Everyone wanted to understand what came next. Mira stood in the newly established conference hall, watching delegates from 20 empires take their seats. At the head of the chamber, Helena Cross waited with quiet confidence, flanked by other representatives from the Exodus. And beside Mira, Jaren stood in his dress uniform, his presence a constant anchor. Counselor Thane called the assembly to order, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen the future and survived. "We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, but as species who must learn to coexist. Commander Cross, the galaxy is listening." Helena rose, and Mira was struck again by how she embodied humanity's dual nature, patient yet fierce, forgiving yet unbending. "For 3 centuries, we watched you from the darkness," Helena began. "We watched empires rise and fall. We watched species destroy each other over pride, resources, and ancient grudges. And we watched humanity, our cousins who remained, accept a place so small they became invisible." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Krell shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't return to conquer you," Helena continued. "We returned to offer a choice. The galaxy can continue as it has, with endless cycles of war and domination, or it can try something new. A true coalition, where every species has voice and vote, where disputes are settled through dialogue rather than firepower. And if we refuse?" Admiral Nexian, his arm in a medical brace from the battle, asked bitterly. Helena's smile was thin. "Then the Exodus returns to the void, and you continue your cycles until you destroy yourselves. But know this, humanity will never again be dismissed. We've proven we can defend ourselves. We'd rather prove we can lead toward something better." "Why should we trust you?" Krell demanded. "You possess weapons beyond our comprehension. How do we know you won't use them to dominate us?" Mira found herself standing, her voice cutting through the tension. "Because I know them. I've walked their halls, spoken with their people, seen their children. They could have annihilated your armada, but they chose restraint. They could have conquered border worlds, but they remained in the void. Everything they've done has been about proving themselves, not subjugating you." "Captain Voss speaks truth," Counselor Thane added. "I've studied the battle data extensively. Every shot the Exodus fired was calculated to disable, not destroy. They spared thousands of lives when they could have taken them easily." The chamber fell silent as delegates considered. Finally, a representative from the Meridian Coalition spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander Cross?" "A galactic parliament," Helena said. "Equal representation for all species, including those currently marginalized. Shared technology development with safeguards. Mutual defense pacts that protect smaller species from larger empires. And humanity, both those from the Exodus and those who remained, sitting at the table as equals." "This would require unprecedented cooperation," Thane mused. "It would require trust," Helena corrected. "Something the galaxy has forgotten. But trust can be rebuilt. The Exodus will share some of our defensive technology as a gesture of good faith. In return, we ask for recognition, for a seat at the table, and for the galaxy to remember that humanity never truly left." The debate stretched for days. Mira found herself at the center, translating between the Exodus's humanity and the galaxy's concerns. It was exhausting, exhilarating work, and Jaren was with her through all of it, offering support and insight. One evening, as they returned to Mira's quarters, she found Helena waiting outside her door. "Commander?" Mira greeted, surprised. "Is something wrong?"
No, I wanted to thank you. Helena's expression softened.
"You bridged worlds today, Mira. Made them understand each other."
That's a rare gift. I learned from watching you, Mira replied.
"The way you fight without hatred, lead without arrogance," Helena smiled. "High praise. And I wanted you to know, when the Parliament forms, when humanity takes its place among the stars again, we'll need ambassadors, people who understand both sides. I hope you'll consider it."
"I will,"
Mira promised. Helena nodded, then paused. "There's something else, a personal question." She glanced at Jaren, then back to Mira. "The way you two look at each other, it reminds me of what we lost in the void. Connections, intimacy beyond survival. Don't waste it, Captain. Life is too short, even when you live for centuries." After Helena left, Jaren pulled Mira into his arms. "She's right, you know, about not wasting time." Mira looked up at him, seeing her future reflected in his eyes. "Then let's not waste another moment." His kiss was answer enough. The Parliament formed slowly, cautiously. Not all empires joined immediately. The Korthar remained suspicious, isolated by their pride. But enough did to matter. The Viridians, the Meridian Coalition, even the Navari eventually, with Krell admitting privately to Mira that fear of humanity had finally taught his people humility. The Exodus became a symbol, orbiting between worlds, a reminder that strength and restraint could coexist. Its children began visiting other worlds, learning alien cultures, teaching human history, and the humans who'd remained, people like Mira and Jaren, found their voices growing louder, their species finally respected. 6 months after the battle, Mira and Jaren stood on Gamma 7's observation deck, now expanded and upgraded. Ships passed constantly, trade vessels, diplomatic cruisers, even tourist liners coming to see the legendary station where the New Age began. Strange, Jaren mused, his arm around Mira's waist. "A year ago, we were nobody. Now we're making history. We were always somebody," Mira corrected, leaning into him. "The galaxy just forgot to look." Helena's face appeared on a nearby screen, transmitting from the Exodus. "Captain Voss, Commander Thrace. The Council has reached a decision. They're formally offering you both positions as humanity's co-ambassadors to the Galactic Parliament. What do you say?" Mira looked at Jaren, seeing her own excitement reflected in his face. Together they'd rebuilt their relationship, found each other again amid chaos and change. Now they had the chance to build something even greater. "We accept," they said in unison. Helena's smile was radiant. "Then welcome to humanity's future. Both humanities. Together." The transmission ended and Mira turned to Jaren, kissing him deeply. Around them, the station hummed with life, with purpose, with hope. "Think we're ready for this?" Jaren asked when they broke apart. "No," Mira admitted with a laugh, "but we'll figure it out. Together." "Together," he agreed. Outside the viewport, stars glittered against infinite darkness. And among those stars the Exodus drifted, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat, a promise that humanity, all of humanity, would never be silent again. The forgotten silence had ended not with conquest, but with connection. Not with domination, but with dialogue. The galaxy had trembled at humanity's return, but now it learned to listen. And in that listening, something new was born. A future where strength meant protection, not conquest. Where differences were celebrated, not feared. Where humanity, patient and fierce, took its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as partners. The dawn had come, and it belonged to everyone.